Startling story out of the Cleveland area. Almost 30 children were reported missing over a 2-week span at the start of May. And for more on what's happening there in Northeast Ohio with this story, we're going to be joined right now by Newburgh, Ohio Police Chief and President of the nonprofit called Cleveland Missing, and that's John Majoy, and he joins us now. Chief Majoy, thanks for being with us here to discuss this story. We came across it today. We wanted to bring you on. I think a lot of viewers want to know essentially what is happening. How many children have been reported missing in just the first few weeks of May there in the Cleveland area?
So we had a total of 27 reported in 2 weeks, and so, which is an unusually high number. But I think one of the key things is that we don't want to raise public alarm that the kids are being randomly abducted off of the streets or something like that. Some of these might be runaways. There's no evidence of any abductions at this point. We would have had an Amber Alert or an endangered alert or some other type of alert. But rather, they're just simply reported missing juveniles between the ages of 12 and 17. And it's an unusually high number for a 2-week period early in May. Again, we would just want to get the word out there to the public because we want the public to be able to help us out and bring these kids home safe.
Chief Majoy, you've been in this business for what, over 3 decades. Is this a spike that you've never seen before, and are you particularly concerned? Have you ever seen this before?
I've not seen this before, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that we need to really raise a red flag about. I mean, we see spikes in robberies, burglaries, sometimes sex crimes, ATM robberies, whatever the case may be. And so there's always cause for concern anytime a crime goes up in a number that is outside of the norm. But all the same, again, I think the key here is to just bring awareness to this because these kids, they're young, they're naive, they're subject to predators. There's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing out there that may want to take advantage of them. If they're runaways, they generally don't have an identification with them. It's hard for them to get a job. They're going to have to resort to other means to feed themselves or put a roof over their head. And some people would like to take advantage of that. And next thing you know, they don't even realize that they're becoming victims of crime themselves.
Yeah, and then to your point, you're alluding to the fact that this is not part of a very well-coordinated criminal enterprise that kind of swept up all of these juveniles here. But do you have any leads? Do you have any evidence to put forth there that these missing children could be swept up into, like you said, some other criminal enterprises? Or do you have any tips that they might be found soon? Have you been in touch with some of their family members? What's going on here?
So we have gotten calls from some family members at Cleveland Missing, and not an unusually higher number than what we normally get, maybe just a few here and there. But again, there's no real tips that are coming in that indicate that there's some sort of criminal enterprise or something else out there. It's really hard to say what exactly is causing this uptick in this.
I also wanted to ask as well, since this initial report was put out, have any of them been found since?
There are several that have been found, which is a good thing. But of course, when there's also a couple that have been reported missing since the original report came out. And so as you see on your screen there's one of the things that should be brought to the public's attention, and that is where you see photo not available. Unfortunately, we see this all too often. And, we need to make sure the parents have current photos of their children. And if you never need them, that's fine. But it's really hard to chase down somebody's name when you're looking at just the name, rather than if you can put a face with a name or something like that. And another key here that we want to bring out is that the public is our biggest asset. And so we really need people to, if they see something, to say something. If something doesn't look right, then they should say something. If they see a young child that just doesn't seem like they fit in as to where they're at the moment, or they're being pushed away, or they look like they're under the influence of narcotics or alcohol or something like that, they really need to call law enforcement, have law enforcement check it out, because all it takes is that one tip to bring a kid home safe.
Yeah, to your point, there's a lot the community can do. Can you talk about your organization and the outreach that you do? You go out into the Cleveland area and the community, and you ask people for help, not only in trying to find some of these juveniles who've been reported missing, but just to help with the organization itself. What more can they do?
So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we're founded by Gina DeJesus, who was one of the survivors of the Cleveland kidnappings, where she was held against her will for nearly 10 years, from the age of 14 to 23. and then her cousin, Sylvia Cologne, who was the spokesperson for the family during her years of captivity. And so they formed this organization several years ago. And basically what we do is we go and we help families of who have missing persons. We do not do investigations. That's up to law enforcement to do the investigations. However, in my 33 years of law enforcement, I can't say that I know what it's like to have a missing loved one because I've never experienced that. However, we have two people on our board that do know what it's like. One was missing herself, and one was a family member who knows what it's like. And they knew the type of things that the family encumbered while she was missing. And so we want to go and be able to provide different degrees of support for the family, whether it's printing flyers, whether or not they want to have a press conference in their offices, whether or not they want to go and do a walk in a certain area or do something that's going to try to bring attention to the case. And so we really strive hard to make sure that we do this to provide that medium for families.
Yeah, and to your point, also, you work with the families so closely of some of these missing juveniles. How are they doing? I mean, do they have hope still? Do you, kind of provide them with those resources so they can essentially, cling to that hope that they will eventually be found in some capacity? What do you do for them?
Well, I think that the message that Gina brings is very, very simple. She was held against her will for nearly 10 years, and she brings a very, very simple message, one word, four letters, and that's a message of hope. She is here to talk about what happened during her captivity, and she's here to deliver the message that there is hope for your loved ones. So we're never going to give up on you. No matter how long the person's been missing, we're still going to keep trying. We're still going to keep looking. We're still going to try to keep the case at the forefront, keep the story going. And so, again, in hopes that we just get that one tip or something just really comes out that brings that loved one home to that family.
Yeah. Chief Majoy there, we appreciate your time. We'll definitely be checking in on any updates in these cases, and we hope you have a good weekend. Thanks so much for all you do.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.